All right, let's talk about epilepsy. You've probably heard of it, right? It's one of the most common neurological conditions out there, but honestly, it's also one of the most misunderstood. So today, we're going to cut through all that confusion. We're getting straight to the facts, from what a seizure actually is to how people manage epilepsy in their day-to-day lives. Ready? Let's dive in. So let me start with a number that might actually surprise you. 10%. That's how many people in the US will have a seizure at some point in their lifetime. 1 in 10. I mean, just think about that for a second. Your friends, your family, the people you work with, it's almost a guarantee that you know someone who will be affected by this. And that leads to a really important question, doesn't it? If someone has a seizure, just one, does that automatically mean they have epilepsy? Well, the answer isn't as simple as you might think, and it's really the key thing we're going to unpack today. Okay, first up, a common condition. Let's look at the sheer scale of epilepsy. Around the world, about 50 million people are living with epilepsy right now. To give you some perspective, that's more than the entire population of a country like Spain. It's actually the 4th most common neurological disorder globally. So yeah, understanding this is incredibly important for all of us. Section 2, decoding seizures, what we're calling the brain's electrical storm. So, what even is a seizure? Well, at its very core, it's a sudden burst of uncontrolled electrical activity in the brain. Think of your brain's communication network like a super complex electrical grid. A seizure is kind of like a brief power surge or a short circuit, something that just temporarily scrambles the signals. And here's the thing, not all seizures are the same. A really big difference is where that electrical storm starts. A focal seizure kicks off in one specific area on one side of the brain, but a generalized seizure, that involves networks on both sides of the brain right from the get-go. And knowing the difference is absolutely critical for doctors when they're figuring out a diagnosis and the right treatment. Now, some seizures can be incredibly subtle. Take an absence seizure. This is not the dramatic event that a lot of people picture. It's just a brief, sudden lapse of awareness, maybe for just a few seconds. The person might just stare blankly into space, almost like someone hit the pause button on their reality for a moment. And then you have the tonic-clonic seizure, which is probably what most people think of. This one has 2 distinct parts. First is the tonic phase, where the body stiffens up, and that's followed by the clonic phase, which involves those rhythmic jerking movements. It can definitely look alarming, but the whole thing is usually over in just 1 to 3 minutes. All right, Section 3, diagnosis. So what is epilepsy? And here it is, the answer to that big question from the beginning. A single seizure does not mean someone has epilepsy. The official diagnosis requires at least 2 unprovoked seizures that happen more than 24 hours apart. And that word, unprovoked, is key. It means they weren't caused by some temporary problem like a really high fever, a head injury, or a sudden drop in blood sugar. So how do doctors figure this all out? Well, the path to a diagnosis is really thorough. It all starts with a physical and a neurological exam. From there, doctors will probably use 2 main tools. First, an EEG, which is kind of like an EKG for your heart, but it measures the electrical activity in the brain. And second, an MRI, which is a powerful scan that lets them look for any structural reasons for the seizures. Okay, moving on to Section 4, pathways to management. And you know what? There's a lot of hope here. For people who are newly diagnosed, about half become completely seizure-free with their very first medication. And with a few tweaks, that number jumps up to 70%. Now, there's still work to do for that other 30%, but this shows that for the vast majority of people, treatment works, and it works really well. The goal of any treatment is super simple: 0 seizures. The first line of defense is almost always an anti-seizure medication. If that doesn't quite do the trick, there are other options like surgery to remove the tiny part of the brain causing the seizures, or even implanting a device that helps regulate the brain's activity. And our final section, number 5, life with epilepsy. Let's tackle a big one that's on a lot of people's minds: driving. What's the deal with that? Well, the short answer is that every single state has driving restrictions for people with epilepsy. The rules do vary a bit from place to place, but the general idea is that you have to be seizure-free for a specific period of time before you can get back behind the wheel. Here's another huge question. What about pregnancy? Can a woman with epilepsy have a healthy baby? And the answer to that is a huge, resounding yes. It absolutely is possible. It just requires some careful planning and working really closely with a good medical team. The key here is really just being proactive. That means talking with a doctor to find the right medication at the lowest effective dose before even trying to get pregnant. Taking folic acid is also crucial, and it's really important to know that certain medications, like valproic acid, carry higher risks and should probably be avoided if possible, especially during that critical first trimester. And that brings us to our final and maybe our most critical point. While managing medication is important, just stopping it cold can be incredibly dangerous. This quote from a panel of experts says it all. The risk of stopping medication is significantly worse than any potential side effects. Uncontrolled seizures can be fatal. So proper medical management isn't just about quality of life, it's about life itself. Remember that epilepsy is a journey, and with the right support, it's one that millions of people navigate successfully every single day.